One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar. Today, we're going to be focusing on breaking into tech. And if folks have noticed, we have a very special guest and actually a maybe a regular person, our attendee, is Coach Mina, who just recently joined Eagle Lock. So super excited to have her. And so for today, our topic is going to be about breaking into tech and talking about what are the ways to be able to do that through your major and also through your career. And so I'm going to share screen into our notes. The things that we're going to First, we're going to do a few quick introductions. We're going to go into the college pathway versus career preparation, and then we'll talk about three phases for entry-level strategy. As a quick housekeeping, if you can don't mind sharing your high school graduation year in the chat so we know how to tailor our content. You can drop your questions in the Q&A box, and also the notes will be available later on. As a quick introduction to myself, if you haven't met me already, I'm Coach Victor with College Admission Secrets, or Eagle Lock. That's our new name that we're trying to get used to now. Uh, I used to work in the admissions office at UC Berkeley, working as an outreach coordinator, where essentially my goal was to travel to a whole bunch of different high schools across California and to be able to share about how exactly admissions works. So we went to took trips to high schools, went presented in classrooms, and pretty much gave people the strategy about how exactly to apply and to be able to maximize their chances into getting to any college. And so all that knowledge is coming to here. Even by way of background as well, I used to also work in tech as a product manager, which is why I am so excited to talk about this particular subject. Fun fact, I majored in social welfare and double minor in public policy and education with a master's degree in public policy. If you notice, those things are not technical at all, yet I still was able to work in the technical field as a product manager. That being said, I'll pass it on to Coach Mina to be able to introduce herself.
Hi, all. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Victor, for inviting me here. Um, I was a senior software engineer most recently at a company. It was a startup, but I have more than 7 years experience working at a variety of different tech companies. I've also been on the interviewer end of hiring for, software roles, and also obviously to get to that point, I've also been on the interviewing um, as a candidate. So my background is actually, well, Victor and I are both from Cal, or did Cal, so go Bears. Um, I studied architecture. I also double minored in city and regional planning and education. Again, not technical, so I think there's going to be quite a topic about that. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And before we dive deep into the content too, something I'm really excited to be able to do is introduce Mina to the community because if you're already a family, a part of our community, you'll be able to access myself, you'll be able to access Mina. And the great thing that I always mention to a lot of parents is talking to more folks that you're not familiar with will help you learn the most, right? Because there's only so much you can learn from your actual community that you're talking to right now. And so by being able to step out, learn from other people, and especially from Coach Mina, you'll be able to get a lot of experience and background in terms of what is it that you can do for yourself. So I'm just going to ask a few quick questions to Coach Mina just so that we all have a better understanding of her. So first, Coach Mina, what brought you to Eagle Lock?
Yeah, I mean, you did, Victor. But I think the thing that really got me excited about working with Eagle Lock was the idea of supporting family and students at like a really crucial time in their lives. I did a lot of reflecting about like what it was like to be a high school student who like my goal was to get into UC Berkeley. And so like everything I did was centered around UC Berkeley. And I did that basically on my own. I had other siblings who had gone to university, but the knowledge sharing there didn't quite happen. And so I was just making a lot of guesses and sort of burning myself out. And I think when I was talking to you, Victor, about, what Eagle Lock does is it, you had mentioned helping students build agency. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like that would have been amazing to have as a high school student. I would have loved it. And it would have just prepared me so much for like the drastic change getting into college. So, yeah.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love how, anyways, being able to support students in the way that you like to be supported way back in the day is always like a really great, like roundabout way of being in service. And so, out of curiosity, like what brought, like we're talking about breaking into tech in this particular webinar. How did you find yourself in tech, given that you used to be an architecture major?
Yeah, a few life crises, I think. So, like, I graduated architecture at a pretty difficult time in the like construction and building space where basically nobody was hiring. And I think even towards the end of my architectural degree, I was already realizing that it wasn't quite the fit for me. But I had, already devoted 3 years to it, so sort of finished it out there. Um, I think so. Basically, right before I did anything tech related, I was actually a math tutor. So I was working like in private sessions with a lot of students who um, needed like personalized support in math. And I'm also sort of a math geek myself, so um, I saw some students who were coding, and I was just like, whoa, okay, you're like making cool games, and I'm somehow helping you in math, but you're able to code a program. And like, I think that sort of just said, okay, well, like you should try it out yourself, Mina. So I basically taught myself how to code in Ruby, which is like a very accessible language. And when I started doing that, I started building tools for math tutoring. And yeah, it sort of just dawned on me that it could be a viable path because I liked one doing it, but I saw the value in like being able to build something that could, impact a whole bunch of people. And so, having not had any technical training, I definitely felt like I needed some of that. And I enrolled myself into a coding boot camp, which actually no longer exists in San Diego, but it was like a 4 month kind of thing. And then, yeah, after like a very rigorous 4 month program, I started just applying to any and all companies that would take me and found my first gig at a startup. So, yeah.
Nice. I love that. I love how you taught yourself how to code, and that was really kind of the catalyst to everything. Because in ways, it's like you never know what is that you can do until you give it a try, right? And I think with a lot of students who are interested in tech, some students here might be enrolled in like their computer science course, but some students don't even have access to a computer science course. So for those who like don't have access to a computer science course, it's totally fine. You could still be able to teach yourself and be able to work in tech. I mean, especially given that Mina was able to learn herself and sought out the training herself and took initiative on that. So I really love that. And so, uh, any other thoughts there, Mina?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay, awesome. Love it. And also, the last question here is what can people come to you for? So, since you're new to the community, I'm sure that you'll be able to interface with a lot of students soon enough. So, curious, what would you say people should come to you for?
Yeah, I'm super passionate about like sharing my experience in tech. I know that there's a lot of navigating that people have to do in the industry. And so the more I could share that kind of knowledge, the happier I am. And then also like, if you have any interest in like knowing what it's like to go to architecture school, because that's its own experience, like starving artist kind of experience, uh, definitely reach out and I'd be happy to just chat about that. And then you could also schedule me for a breakthrough call where we can, talk about what you're looking to do, what you're looking to study, and create an action plan. Um, and I'd be happy to do that with you.
Love it, love it. And those who are new to our community, the breakthrough calls or assessment calls are free 15-minute assessment calls for those who have never interacted with us in the past before and interested to understand the college admissions process, and then secondly, to be able to get an action plan on what exactly that you can do to raise your chances. So at the very end, I'll talk about that again too. But remember that you can always be able to learn more from us. You can be able to work with Mina and to be able to maximize your chances. All right, I see that folks are trickling into our webinar. Welcome, welcome. Out of curiosity, if you have your high school a year graduation, please throw it in the chat so we know about how old everyone is or how old your kids are, whichever. And also, if you're interested in tech, would love to be able to hear that too. Is there any particular occupations you're interested in working in? Is there any particular like companies that people want to work in? Just let us know so that way we could be able to react to it and be able to tailor that content for you. So the next part, what we're going to do is that we're going to go and talk about the college pathway versus career preparation. And then later on, we'll go into the three phases for the entry level strategy. This is primarily for the high school students to be able to get their foot in the door. So first, I'm going to talk about the college pathway. Coach Mina, do you mind just taking notes for me while I'm chatting? Because I have a hard time doing
Yeah,
both at the same time. Uh,
absolutely.
so the college pathway versus career preparation, there's two types of ways that you could be able to enter into tech, okay? The first is being able to study it through the college pathway, right? Which we're about to talk about. And also there's the alternative way, which is what Coach Mina and myself did, but we've helped many students, hundreds of students to be able to go through the college pathway as well. So first off, when it comes to the college pathway and admissions, the way it works is that there's three particular pathways to admissions. The first pathway is computer science and engineering. Second pathway is STEM and business. And third is everything else. So depending on which pathway that you decide to go into, that will determine about how the admissions committee will review your application and put you and compare you against the other applicants. So primarily for this particular one, you're either going to be in the first pathway, which is computer science and engineering, and second pathway is the STEM and business. Okay, so let's talk about the first pathway. So the computer science and engineering pathway, what they're really looking for is your academics is really focused on one, your math courses, and then second is your physical science courses, so particularly physics. And also if you have any magnet courses or subject specific courses such as computer science or engineering. And so let's first talk about math because math is actually one of the most important things for this particular pathway because think of it this way, when it comes to admissions, we compare you to the average of the rest of your high school. So the question to ask yourself is, uh, when when do students typically take Calculus AB or take Calculus BC? What is the maximum limit that they typically offer? Because remember that you're going to be compared against two groups of people, your high school and your geographical location. So what they want to know is, are you taking advantage of your academic opportunities in your area? So what we do there, right, is that we're able to see what the typical math progression is at your high school. And from based off of that, we will determine, right, if you are taking the appropriate level of math in comparison to the average student population. What we want to learn from this is, can you handle the amount of college rigor at our university? So the way that we typically determine that is through your AP courses and high levels amount of rigor. If you are a part of our families, you already know that we always encourage dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is where you take the community college classes at the while you're in high school. And the reason why this is so important is because it is already at college level rigor. Take it this way. If you were to finish Calculus AB, that's a full year course, and you got to get a 4 or 5 by the end of the school year. But when you go to a community college, you could just take it at Calculus AB and within one semester. So you're actually finishing in half the time. And also, you don't have to take an AP test, which is amazing. And so typically what we recommend, especially if you're going down this technical pathway of computer science and engineering, is that you should try to increase your calculus and take that in the community college setting, because there's actually another level of calculus that's offered right after BC. So there's Calculus 1, Calculus 2, and then Calculus 3, which you can take at the community college setting. The numbers might be different, right? Depending on what community college that you actually go to. But just generally speaking, right, there's a progression in calculus that is typically offered. So for yourself, right, if there is usually only Calculus A, B, or BC offered at your school, great. You already know that that is the limit. That is the threshold that you will have to beat. So if students are typically taking Calculus BC, then you would already know that if you just take the third level of calculus in the particular community college, then you could be able to have one leg up. Uh, And furthermore, if you were to take it earlier, let's say before you actually finish you submit your application, that's even better too, because having a grade for your particular course is a lot better than having it like in the process of enrollment or process of being it completed. So that was a lot for math, but essentially that's a kind of the way to kind of tackle the math there. And the next part is also physics. Okay. Physics is really important here because not sure if folks know, but there are actually four AP physics courses. Most schools maybe only have one or two. So in that case, right, you can actually take a AP physics course. Actually, one of the websites we recommend is called ucscout.com. In UC Scout, you're actually able to take another level of AP physics that is offered online, and you can take it at your own pace. So something to take advantage of, right, is not just taking math, like higher level rigor, but also taking levels of physics that are typically not offered at that particular school. Because again, the goal is to diversify your academic rigor and show that your academics is a lot more diverse than your peers, because it makes it hard for them to compare you against the peers if you have all these different courses that that they never had before. So the goal here is to show that you're taking initiative. You're taking initiative to learn more about this particular field or this particular subject that no other student can be able to do. Okay. So that's why we're called college admission secrets. That's kind of the secret there that we're kind of like letting folks know that this is how you be able to stand out. Okay. Uh, the second part, right, is that you can also enter through the STEM and business pathway as well. So for the STEM and business pathway, right, I know it's kind of weird to hear STEM while like, the E is engineering, but we separate it out because the CS and engineering pathway has more specific rigor to it. While STEM and business, math is still very much important. All the things I talked about with math still apply, but also the additional difference here is that it's actually more focused on the life sciences. So the life sciences, such as biology and also AP environmental science and also chemistry, those are things that tend to matter a lot more within this particular pathway if you're trying to optimize for that. Because there's ways to get into tech without working as an engineer, right? I'm a product manager, and usually as a product manager, we focus a lot on like the business aspect of tech. And so if you're trying to go for a business degree, right, focus on the math, of course, and then also you don't necessarily need to go too hard into like the physics kind of courses as opposed to the CS and engineering pathway. So again, in terms of the kind of technical fields, there's different ways to be able to do it. But if you're going for any of these pathways, these are the classes that you want to optimize for. Okay. Some other questions generally too that people have asked in the past is like, should I be taking engineering, computer science, or business courses at the community college? That's totally fine. But one of the things that we also recommend or to consider is the classes transferable at all to the university? Because yes, you can take it and it'll look good for your major, but also something else that we want to look out for is it fulfilling an actual general education requirement? Because sometimes people might say, I want to take business finance at a community college. And for most parts, business finance is not considered a general education requirement. And so the thing is like, yes, it might show you demonstrate your interest, but the thing is we want it to count as like transferable college credit. And that's really important, at least for the admission setting, because we want to show that you're taking qualified, rigorous college courses. Okay. Uh, all right. I know that was a lot of information there. Mina, is there anything that you might want to add or any questions that you might have about that I should have dug into?
No, that seems pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. All right. We won't dig too much into alternative pathway because I want to make sure that we have time for everything else.
yeah.
Remember, if you do have any questions or Q&A, feel free to add it to the chat. We'll get to it at the very end. Okay. So I'm actually going to now pass it over to Coach Mina, who's going to talk a little bit more about the career side now for the market analysis of technical fields.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of people are trying to figure out if tech is even like a viable path given all of the news that we've heard about all of these layoffs that have been happening, and then also just, competitive interests, with H-1B visas and stuff like that. So is tech's still something that you should get into? I think so. Like, I think there's still so many opportunities, and I think the news is really good at scaring people, but um, there are so many problems that are being solved in the market and companies are always struggling to find the right people, and so yes, I think it's still a good time um, to get into tech. Um, I do still see a lot of entry level roles, and that's because companies, even though they're not advertising it because they have their own different funnels of how to recruit talent, they know that they have to invest in new talent if they are going to, have a sustainable business. So just know that, like, yes, the market might be tough right now, and it might be favoring experienced people. I bet by the time you all are, exiting college, the market will be very different because tech is sort of volatile in that sense. But um, let's see. Um,
Yeah,
a question.
so maybe
Yep.
to dig into this a bit more, or maybe to help people explain like what it means by volatile in this sense, right? How do you expect the market to look like differently? Like let's say 4 years from now or 5 years from now, how do you imagine like what the tech economy is like favoring now in this case?
Yeah, I mean, right right now, I think a lot of people are sort of coming down from, or coming up from like the slope. I'm not like an expert at market analysis, but even 3 years ago, the market was incredibly hot, meaning they just wanted to hire everyone. And it's it's flipped now. And I think that, like, if we think about how long it takes for that market to flip, in 3 years, it could be in that market what it was like in 2020, where, they just want everybody.
Yeah. And maybe something I want to add too is just like the market trends here, which like I know like a huge big thing that a lot of people are gonna probably consider as a necessity is just like AI, like technology and like experience with AI and also machine learning as well. I think generally folks, a lot of high school students are already like playing with AI in some ways. Maybe you're doing it through your own kind of applications you're using on your phone. But something that people tend to always want like students to know is like what are the foundations on how AI models are created? What is machine learning? What makes a good machine learning model? What is bias? What is like kind of fundamental things to help understand like how technology can be used for good? Because there's a lot of cases where technology can actually be used for bad and it could be unintentional. Like for example, sometimes if you use AI technology it's one of those things where people say the model is only as good as how the data is inputted, meaning that if you give a model bad data or AI technology bad data, it will produce bad like outcomes. And so that being said, right, a lot of people tend to just say, "Oh, AI, AI, AI" as like a kind of a buzzword, and they might think that it might like make them look good, but if they don't understand the fundamentals of AI, then like it might not necessarily matter as much to be that impressive. Anything?
Yeah, I want to underline exactly, like, um something that, as like a candidate who has interviewed at like probably over like 50 to 70 companies, the the thing that they want to know is how you talk about technology, and specifically how you've like approached it for yourself. And so knowing the foundation is always going to be like quickly uncovered in those questions, or I guess in those conversations.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit more about like I know there's this case about like do I specialize in a particular particular domain or do I be a generalist? Like as in like knowing just the craft, like being really good at Ruby, being like a master coder versus like being really good at a particular domain. What have you seen from your experiences about like what is like kind of more preferred nowadays?
Yeah, so as somebody who for a majority of my software career, I've branded myself as a generalist, and that's because I really like knowing the full, like all the way in the front end for the UI and all the way in the back end with the systems. That worked for me basically right up until a year ago when those layoffs were happening. And so specializing is basically like what companies are looking for right now because um, they have like a lot of competition. You could sort of create these companies really quick, and the product could be learned from really quickly through just like, experimentation. So, um, yeah, I would say right now, specialization is sort of the thing to be mindful of when you're picking up some, tools or coding languages. You don't need to know 50 languages. You actually really just need to know one and be able to talk about how like in depth you know it.
Mhm. I like how you put that example, particularly about like the specialization of just like being really good at one language. What are some other examples of specialization that that you can think of? I'm imagining high school students probably don't know too much about what that exactly means, so maybe put into like concrete examples of what they can learn about or like be able to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I've primarily focused, so like I get asked like, oh, what my specialization is, right? And it could be like, how much do you know about web technology? Or how much do you know about like Amazon's cloud services? Or um or like literally how much do you know about this one language, Ruby? Because sometimes, or actually a lot of times, um they need like an expert. Um so does that clarify it?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And so when it comes to these, and it's great that you've like actually been on the interviewer end as well. And so a common question, right, that a lot of people tend to get, do you need a computer science degree to like kind of get a job like yours or anything of that sort?
I think I'm a testament for the answer being no. Um, Most of my peers actually have found their way into tech through the non-traditional path. So either being self-taught or being boot camp graduates. Um, there's a and once you get into the field, it's not so much of like a hierarchy, like oh you went to a boot camp or oh you got a degree. Um, People bring different strengths. And so the biggest strength with folks who don't go the traditional route is that they often have a lot of experience in some other domain. And so that like translates really well through things like, how do you rally your teammates up uh in your work environment? Or just, do you know like a specific industry really well? So yeah, I would say it's not necessarily required. Um, I know a lot of companies are also loosening the requirement on that. Some companies still are like, well, we're not going to look at your resume because it doesn't have a degree or a degree in computer science. And that's unfortunate. But I will say that having a degree in computer science would probably obviously give you a lot of confidence in your, uh, foundational knowledge. I also do know a lot of people who did the boot camp route and then having been in the industry for 2 to 3 years, have decided to actually go back and get their um, bachelor's of science in comp sci, just so that they could have like a very structured understanding of all of the stuff that they're working with.
Yeah, I love that. And also, maybe for myself to share a bit too, I definitely did not study computer science, but I was able to still work in tech. At least for me, I've always been working in education, and education was my specialization or my domain. And so, what was helpful for me is that I worked for an education technology company, and they needed that specialization of the industry specific information because you can't build technology for something if you don't understand the problem. Okay. The way I see it is that there's two types of knowledges, right? two types of knowledges, which is one, the actual domain, and domain could be like education, transportation, health, uh, a lot of other things, right? Or like finances, right? And then there's actually the technical knowledge, right? Which is like the skills, such as the coding. And also for me, I actually did boot camp too on product management. So boot camps have been pretty popular.
Yeah.
It's very specialized in terms of being able to learn a specific skill. Though, like taking a retrospective back, right? I mean, if I were to go back in time where I'm not regretting anything that I'm doing, maybe slightly. But one of the things I do like miss that I could have done in college was I kind of wish I did a computer science degree because a computer science degree would have actually expedited my career into tech. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was interested in tech, and so that's one of the things too that within the one of the things that could have been helpful for me to understand that was having more conversations of learning more about tech. Like, for example, I'm like first generation college educated, so I didn't really know what was actually available. I didn't know what was actually out there. And so, in ways, I didn't realize that product management was an actual career in tech because I didn't talk to people. So, this is where one of the major encouragements is for high school students, especially, is talk to as many different people in the career field as much as you can, because that's going to be able to help you understand if this is something that you really want to do or not. Because if I did talk to people, then I would have known that maybe computer science would have been a really great chance for me. And also, I didn't have a computer science high school class either, so I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't ever. It's kind of crazy how like high schools now, and there's always like a computer science course now, and like back in the day, there was no computer science courses offered for me at all. So that's just one of the things that's just like now that just shows you how fast tech is growing as a particular field. Uh, Great. Anything else that you want to add to that, Mina?
Yeah, I just want to second that. Like, also first generation here. And I also did not know anybody in tech. So I think the advice to just reach out to people who actually have experience in the industry would be so valuable. Asking them like why they like it, and also just like the logistical things like, oh, how much time, how many hours a week do you spend uh at work? That varies a lot from industry to industry and also company to company. So
Yep, for sure, for sure. So that's the thing that we always encourage y'all. Make sure that y'all talk and be able to learn from a lot of different people. That's why you have myself and Coach Mina here, and that's why we're so excited to have Coach Mina because she gives a perspective. And one of the most important things about having a really great college admissions company is that you have people from different expertise and backgrounds. Hence why we have other coaches. We've had pre-med webinars as well. I'm sure that some folks might have attended if you were interested. And so I guess you can say that we are the techies of Eagle or College Admission Secrets right now. Okay, so going now into occupations. So we're going to talk about there's three types of occupations that are really like kind of general like general groups. Okay, there's the technical, there's the non-technical, and then there's also management. And so we're going to go into each one about like what does that actually look like. We're not going to go to the nitty-gritty about like what does each individual thing do, but like what are some kind of examples of it and what do you generally need to understand and know. So let's start with technical, Mina. What would you say are the general kinds of examples of maybe let's start off with titles. What are some titles of like technical roles?
yeah, I mean, engineering is pretty broad. So you basically got your engineer. It could be a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, um, software engineer, even data engineer, which is like one of the newer ones. Um, and so for all of those, like you're definitely going to need to be familiar with foundational comp sci basics, um, and be familiar with the tools, or at least like what kinds of tools are out there that uh, you'll be working with.
Right. And now I think there's also another kind of technical field that is merging more so is data science fields. So data science, like for example, data analytics. There's also like what do you call them? Data modeling, data. architect. There's a data science. There's data
Uh,
architects out there.
yeah. So I guess like going higher up, you could have like system administrator or um yeah, software architect. Those are more specific to understanding the general system and also making proposals about how systems should be built. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and also like researching as well, researching any particular uh like trends or data to help like build the product. So for example, I used to work with a lot of data scientists in a lot of my roles as a product manager back then, which I'll talk about in a bit, which essentially like you look at product analytics, like let's think of what do students use nowadays? Instagram, TikTok, something of that sort. There's a lot of people that are using likes or engagement. There's views, there's comments, and then the question becomes, how do you make things more engaging? How do you like what trends do you see with the likes? What trends do you see with the views? And also what tends to bring the most like kind of engagement overall? Because the most social media companies, what they're really trying to optimize for is the most attention capital. They want you to be on their application as much as possible. And so that's what they're looking for in terms of like that data. Okay. Any other technical roles that we might have forgotten here?
Um, yeah, I think we sort of covered it. There's also like the AI ML side of it where, you could be like a model trainer, um,
Mm,
or just like an AI engineer who does a whole bunch of that, refining like the algorithm.
hmm. Yeah, and this is like kind of similar to what we mentioned about like just understanding the basics of machine learning and how models are created and generated.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And let's go into the actually, and one last question. How would someone know if they're a good fit for like these technical kind of roles? What would you say, or how did you know, Mina, that you like wanted to be in these particular roles?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was sort of easy for me because I liked programming and I just wanted to continue coding, specifically doing stuff with web technology. Um, but I think like, anytime anybody is in the interviewer seat or interviewee seat, like the candidate seat, and they're trying to understand whether or not um, the company is a good fit for them, you could always ask like, how is my growth as an engineer uh, going to be prioritized or supported? Um, and I think that's actually a good question that anybody could ask in anything that they are thinking about engaging in because it gives you an idea of uh, really like what is the community that you're sort of stepping into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Love that. Yeah, and also something too is like I think a common trend for a lot of like engineers, data scientists, or AI folks is like they love getting into the weeds of like in the midst of coding. Like let's just say like you're doing like a math problem. Let's say you don't even have coding class, but if you get into a math problem or a coding issue, or maybe you're like the tech support at home and you love doing that stuff, right? That's also another kind of sign that you could be a really great like engineer, data scientist, or AI person is because you're always helping people technically. So that's always tends to be a thing as well. Um, and maybe you might find, maybe if you're a parent, you might find that in your child, and it could be the case that they could be a good fit for that too. All right, let's talk about non-technical roles now. Really, what happens here is that there's actually like product management, which is tends to be actually one of the most competitive roles actually within the tech industry. And the reason for that is because the way that companies are kind of structured and run is that they would have a few engineers and a designer working with one product manager. So for each team of like 3 to 6, even sometimes like up to 8 or 10 engineers, there's one product manager and one designer. And the product manager really what their goal is to validate what is it that we should build? What is it that we should create? for our users. And essentially, they're like the business-oriented people. They're the ones that help create the strategy and also have the most actually empathy for the users that are trying to use the product. And so within product management, uh, if you like some basic knowledge is like understanding your business skills, like understanding like your market, like economics, right? Taking an econ class, understanding supply and demand, and also generally about how do you make profit um, based off your existing costs. So that's like a business course. Um, the other kinds of roles that you might see too are designers. Designers are like the ones who create user interfaces, user experiences, or something of that sort. They're like the ones that create the like actual buttons on the screen. Uh, so for example, like, like for someone had to create these particular toolbars at the top, and they thought about like how to make this more accessible. And so the designers are the ones thinking about how do we help users get to their goal faster and as accessible as possible. So if you tend to be like someone that likes like design, like let's just say you're an aesthetic kind of person. You love fixing up your home screen on your phone. You love being like an artsy craftsy person. What a lot of people don't realize too, if you're an artist, you might be a really great designer for tech. Not only a lot of people realize that. And that's just because you think that you need to understand coding, which actually you don't really need to fully understand coding. What you do need to understand is shoot, I'm trying to, what's that word? The design models. What is it? I'm
Like the
blanking out the word.
mock-ups,
What's up?
the mock-ups or
Mockups, diagramming, wireframing.
themes, yeah.
Uh, what's it called when you have like certain elements and that you're using all the time?
Components?
Components. There we go. So like components. Okay, this is going a little bit too technical in the weeds now, but like you just need to understand these like kind of basic concepts about like how uh things are designed in a modular way where you can reuse it multiple times in different areas of like the platform. Uh, I know this sounds like jargon, but trust me, the more you get exposed to this type of jargon, the easier it'll be once you actually transition into tech. And also some other non-technical roles is client experience. Okay. I think this is the last kind of big area. The client experience people are the people who really care about the relationships. There is a lot of companies that uh, it's not just building an application or building some type of platform and giving it to users, but it's about the user experience and how do they need to be walked through it. So, for example, there's always going to be people who are going to be helping consult with users on how to best utilize their platform. They're the ones who actually really generally love to teach, generally love to coach, and they're the types of people that like to walk people through the steps of like, um, hey, like what this is how you can utilize our product, this is how you can be able to solve for your goals, all these different things. So the client experience people are the ones who are really great at relationship building. Anything you want to add to any of those, Mina, or did I miss any of them?
No, I will say like for you like the designers portion, sorry, this is like sort of backtracking, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of like questions around accessibility as well. So,
Mm,
like if somebody uh has like vision impairment and stuff, they also consider those things. And it's not always actually things that are on a screen. It's also like think about medical devices, like where do those buttons go? So I just wanted to put it out there that it wasn't just like just web UI.
right, right. That's very true. Like think of it like this mouse right here, right? There was a designer, a product designer that had to figure out like, oh, you need something for your thumb right there to make sure it is like in a good place. And also the way that your fingers are sculpted, it needs to be in a perfect like amount there. So it's pretty cool. This is the magic of tech in a way where like you have product managers, designers, and engineers working together to try to solve and build for a particular problem. All right. The last bit is management. Okay. Management is a little bit of a broader term, but essentially you can be a manager in technical or non-technical ways. Okay. So you could be a manager for engineers, you could be a manager for product managers, and essentially they they kind of fall in the more non-technical kind of land because uh, your main goal is how do you coach, how do you manage, how do you like prepare your team to do their best. And so in ways you might not actually be doing the technical work that you would expect as an engineer. And these are for people who like um, really love the technology, really love to be able to know the nuances of like how to code, how to do all these things. But they what they love more is how do you support people? How do you coach people? So being like a supervisor, being a manager is someone who really cares about the growth and development of their team members. And so it doesn't really matter about which particular role you go into. But the way into management usually is you go into one particular field, you gain a lot of expertise in there. So, like, say, for example, you're an engineer, you get really good at it, but then also you kind of take a pivot and then you start learning how to manage the other engineers. So that's an example of like kind of that trajectory. Uh, Anything you would want to add there, Mina?
Um, no, I think that about covers it. Oh, actually, I do want to add something there.
Yeah.
So, I've worked with like managers who, you know, uh, actually didn't have much technical experience, but they were managing software teams. So that's also a thing. Um, they they could be really good people leaders in that sense, like guiding and coaching people without actually having to know how to code.
Yep. Yep. That's definitely the case. And also, like, for example, as a product manager, that's what I said as my title. Technically, management is in there as well. And in ways, I would have to manage team of engineers and designers when I didn't know how to do their job at all. So that was one of the
Yeah,
things.
you managed me.
I wouldn't say I managed you. We were on the same team. I managed the
Yeah.
team. All right. The last particular area that we're going to go into is the three phases for entry level strategy. Okay. So, uh, I know that we're talking a lot about career, we're talking a lot about like all this industry stuff, and it might sound confusing, might seem a little bit overwhelming, but that's just to give you an idea. These are like the conversations that you should be having or your kid should be having with people to understand more about the field. Because again, if you don't have these conversations, how the heck is this your are you going to know about what is it that you want to work towards, right? You got to backwards map it. We're always talking about strategy within our company, and this is one of them. Okay. So first off, there are three phases to entry level, and when I talk about these phases, it's like you can't just expect that you're gonna get an internship all of a sudden within the computer science field and be an engineering intern. Okay. So you got to work your way towards there. So the first level is shadowing. Which is basically what it sounds like is you just I don't want to say shadow. You just shadow. You just watch somebody do their job. Essentially, like shadowing is all about information gathering, right? To observe somebody is really powerful because you have a better understanding of what they do on a day-to-day basis. And by learning that, there's a few benefits. One, you get to understand like, do you actually like to do this? Is this something that you can imagine yourself doing? Because you shouldn't be doing something you don't like, personally. Okay, sure, there might be a lot of money in there, like as an engineer, for example, but you should be like, you're going to be doing this on a day-to-day basis, uh, like when you wake up, go to work 9 to 5, and you're doing something, and you don't want to dislike something that you're doing, right? And so that's really important to shadow. The second part is that you can understand what are the challenges or the issues that the company is experiencing. So if you're able to shadow for any particular company, and for those who don't, uh, realize it, you probably have friends or family that are working in the particular industry. So aim for the startups, aim for the small companies because they're likely to be able to say yes to you. And the goal is what are the specific issues that they are working on? And what are the particular skill sets they're looking for to be able to have on their team? And this is going to help you for phase two and phase three when you look into it a bit more. Um, Before I go on to the next one, Mina, anything you want to add for shadowing here?
Yeah, this is like probably a minute detail, but I think with shadowing, um, take that opportunity to ask anybody and everyone at said company to just like have a chat about, again, what they like. Is that the thing that you would like? and just explore the different roles because you might be shadowing one person, but there's opportunity to just uh, build your network and shadow other people at the same company.
Nice, nice. Yep. This is the perfect time to be able to start your network. If you are in high school, it's never too early to start a LinkedIn, okay? Uh oh yeah, that was one of the things that we talked about a while back in a few webinars. If you want a LinkedIn webinar, let us know in the chat or the Q&A, and then we'll know that there's a demand for that, and then we'll be able to like prep that in the future. Phase two is project-based learning. So now that you have a better understanding of like what the job is like, the next part is to develop the skill sets that they would expect or need at the company. Okay, this is how you get your foot in the door. You learn a skill that they are particularly looking for. Okay, I was actually talking to somebody earlier today. They're asking for me for career advice, right? And they're like, what's the best way to be able to like get a job? And like, this is someone who's already graduated and trying to break into tech. And I mentioned like, well, what are you doing right now? And she's like, well, I'm just trying to get really better at Ruby. And I was like, okay, that's understandable. But also, how do you know if that's what they're exactly looking for at the company? Because you can be learning a skill, you can take a lot of classes on Ruby or whatever skill set, but how do you know that's what they're actually looking for at the company that you want to work at? So really, that's why it's called project-based learning because you are building something yourself using that particular skill. If you can create that, you create your portfolio. When you get that portfolio, you are marketable. Okay. And that shows that is proof that you can be able to work for that company. There's probably a few parents on this call realizing, like, oh my God, I could actually do that for myself too. Yes, this is not just like a high school kind of strategy, but this is also like a career strategy for anybody that wants to work in any field. Okay. I've been like, hiring people. Mina has hired people in the past. And really, the way that we hire is looking, can you actually do the job? Right? That's the main thing that we want to understand. And just by being able to have that experience, you're able to show, or having that project-based learning, you're able to show that you are competent. Coach Mina, anything you want to add here?
Yeah. Again, I get into the nitty-gritty, so pardon me, but a lot of times as like a software engineer or I guess any kind of like individual contributor kind of engineer, you might be asked to uh, build a project given some kind of assignment. So they'll give you some kind of requirements. And you'll probably spend a good amount of time developing that on your own. Um, don't be afraid to ask for help to review those kinds of projects. Um, like one of the best things I've seen in interviews is somebody comes in with a project and I will ask them, how did you improve this project? And they'll be like, oh, I actually got feedback from somebody else. And that by itself sort of demonstrates that you're always looking to improve your skills. And that's like a very desirable quality as an engineer.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, a lot of times, what I love is that people sometimes think asking for help is a weakness, when in reality, that's such a strength. Like, asking for help is one of the most crucial things within tech. Because if you think about tech, right, the whole kind of spirit is continuous improvement. How are you always constantly building? How are you constantly experimenting? How are you trying out new things? And the best way to experiment is to get feedback, right? Everything about your applications, the things that you use in technical field, it's all based off user feedback. Everything is based off of what is it that the client, what is it that the customer has said that they experience an issue with. The same thing goes here. Imagine that you are the customer yourself, and then you are trying to be able to get feedback from yourself on what is it that you can improve on. All right. The last phase is internships before we go into Q&A. So internships right here, right? Once you've developed the project, once you've been able to show that you actually like understand what is it they're working on, the next is to develop and create your own internship, which is so a lot of people, right? The typical thing is that they will apply to internships on like a job posting or maybe those national, federal like kind of internships that like thousands of other students are applying to the exact same thing and you got to compete against all of them. Well, the thing is, like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to apply against everybody. You can if you really wanted to and you're really competitive. But the most important thing here is like, if you showed enough value to a company, you understand what is it that they need, you can actually create your own internship, right? As a high school student, one of the best perks, and also kind of a controversial perk too, is that you don't need to get paid as an intern because you're trying to get experience, right? Anything can be an internship. And so really you're just talking to the employer, asking to and asking them like, hey, I saw from my shadowing experience that I saw that you are experiencing this issue. And also I saw that there's a need here, and I developed this project to practice that skill that you're looking for. And I'm wondering, is there a way that I can help you out? Because I shown evidence through my project. And this is how you get an internship. And not a lot of people realize that this is like a really strong strategy that not a lot of people realize because they just think that they have to apply to a job like posting. When in reality, this is how I got a lot of my internships. I'm sure that for those who have went to my internship training before, they've seen like my proof of the different internships I've gained using this particular skill. So that being said, like you don't have to apply. You can apply regularly if you want to, but the main goal is as an intern, right? You want to demonstrate that you can do the job. And that's why it's so important to go through these phases first. Okay. Any last words that you have here, Mina?
Um, no, I think it's just also something like providing your project uh and having already done all of that research to know specifically what a company needs and wants demonstrates like hunger, and it also demonstrates like the unsaid part, which is like you're prepared already to like do the research on your end um, to support their business. So,
All right. All right, I know we're almost at our time, so let's get into the questions that people have been waiting to be able to get answered. So thank you all for your patience. So let's do some quick rapid fire questions. I see if AP Calculus BC is the last track offered at high school, what math class do you recommend at college? Calculus 3? Yeah, so Calculus 3 is technically would be like considered multivariable calculus. So that's what's offered at the community college. So take a look for multivariable calculus. That's the course that you want to take. My son's high school only offers AP Physics 1 and 2. He's taking AP Physics now in junior year and wants to take mechanical engineering in college. Is it okay to finish science with Physics 2, or do you recommend to take Physics C at UC Scout or CC, or take AP Physics 2 or AP Chemistry in senior year? Ooh, that is a very loaded question because it kind of depends because we also want to see the rest of the transcript. Generally speaking, the more that you accomplish before you even apply is always going to be better, right? So it's one of those things like, uh, yes, you can like it's not like as if you don't take physics two by the end of senior year, you're not going to get in. But it's still going to look better if you were to take physics one and two ahead of time before you apply and then take physics C or something of that sort. So maybe the way I would go about this is if physics 2 is already offered at the high school, I'd probably take physics C during the on UC Scout or community college prior to AP Physics 2. Because the thing is, you're already showing that you finished the the Physics C that no one else has before you apply. So that's part of the strategy there. So try to take the courses again that are not offered at your school, have it on your transcript, and then that way it shows that, okay, no one else is going to have this done either. But you have it done. So that's the kind of cool part about like strategizing for admissions. Lastly, can you give an example of boot camp? Is it like a certification? Yes, there's a lot of boot camps out there. There's countless of them. The one I did was called the Product School. Mina, what was yours called? I know it's no longer existing, but
yeah, learnacademy.org, I think. The website's still up, so you could get a sense of what the offering was, but they're closed.
yeah, and generally speaking, the thing about certification that people want to be careful about, certifications help you accomplish jobs in a particular occupation or domain. It's very specific. A degree, a bachelor's degree, is kind of open. It lets you do kind of different types of jobs. So this is like vocational versus like a actual bachelor's of arts or bachelor's of science. Typically speaking, a bachelor's degree is what opens up more opportunities generally, while a certification helps you be able to specialize in one job only. So that's just something to consider as you're trying to choose. You can always do both. You can always just do one. But of course, within this, we're recommending to go get that bachelor's degree within Eagle Lock. All right. We're at our last minute. So one last thing I'll mention out is if you found this helpful at all and you really liked what you like saw, text notes or replay to 949-298-6234 for the notes and the recording of this webinar. And also, if you want to chat with Coach Mina and get a free 15-minute assessment call on your college admissions process, you can text Mina to 949-298-6234. And if you're new to our community, I highly encourage you to chat with Coach Mina to be able to give you that introduction to this whole entire process and learn more about our community as well. And also, if you're already part of our families, you can join us for office hours. I think, Mina, you can join my office hours next time, right?
Yeah.
So we're still working on her office hours. She wants to have her own. But if you want to join for mine, which you'll probably be able to see her as well, is on Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. So Pacific. So if you want to chat with us about technology, feel free to do so. Again, one of the major perks and advantages of being able to be a part of our family and our coaching families is that you have access to people like us to learn more about the technical field or whatever. So that being said, take advantage of our resources, take advantage of our notes, text notes, text replay, and text Mina, and to be able to get all the support that you need. And everyone, have a good rest of the night. Take care.